So
Right.
welcome everyone to the Her Retirement video channel and podcast. So if you're listening, great. If you're watching, great. And today I have with me Andrea Hunt. Hello, Andrea.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have this chance to talk to you because you have some interesting things to share with me and my audience. Andrea is a transformational life coach and EFT practitioner. So can you translate for us what that is?
So there's two separate things, but then I combine them. Most of the time people come to me when they're feeling stuck. Sometimes they are not content with the life that they're living and they feel that they deserve more. And they think to themselves, how do I actually get from point A to point B? Where do I need to start? So I help people with that. Other times people are in a spot where they're trying to rebuild. Maybe they lost a job, or like during the pandemic, a lot of people got laid off. And so they suddenly were like, okay, how do I move forward? How do I recreate? Other people get out of a breakup, or something else happens in their lives that they need to move. And so they need to kind of start from zero, so to speak. And so with transformational life coaching, it's a really good idea to start with that and see, where are you happy with your life and where do you feel that there's room for improvement? Because a lot of times people feel unfulfilled, but they're not really sure, okay, what needs to change? Maybe my job's okay, but then maybe my health is bad because I'm working so many hours, I don't get sleep, I don't have enough self-care. And EFT tapping is really good for working with the mindset. Like, it's a form of energy psychology and mindfulness. So for example, if you have emotional blocks that keep you stuck, you might not go ahead and try for that promotion. You might kind of self-sabotage yourself in sneaky little ways by procrastinating. And when you want to do something, or you have to, but you somehow have this resistance that you've created within yourself. So it's really good for those kind of things, stress and anxiety. And so I combine those two things: life coaching for clarity, intentions, and goal setting, and then EFT tapping to kind of help with the blocks and the way that we stop ourselves.
That's very interesting. I was actually talking to a woman today, because it's her retirement after all. So I typically talk to women. But I was talking to her and she said, I've been trying to get around to getting my retirement stuff in order. And so we were having a conversation about what are the things she's trying to get in order. She said, you know what? I've just been procrastinating. I just have been procrastinating. I've been putting it off.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I would say to a woman before she talks to me, you know what, go talk to Andrea and find out what's blocking you.
Where's your resistance? What are you resisting?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of reasons why we procrastinate for different things, but when it comes to your money and planning for your retirement, there's probably many different reasons that people do it. And you probably help people uncover what is that block. I love life coaching. I think I mentioned to you the other day when we first met that when I was 12, I bought a book at a flea market, like How to Enjoy Life Between 12 and 120 or something. And
I love that.
Yeah, my mom was like, wait, you should be out riding your bike. And playing
So serious for a 12-year-old.
Yeah. And for my 13th birthday, I asked for a file cabinet, which my kids think is hysterical.
Wow.
Because I had a lot of papers and stuff and I want to keep them organized, but they're like, you are a geek, mom. But yeah, we can talk about that in a coaching session to find out what's that all about. And I know, one of the main things that I wanted to ask you is, when you work with people, where do they end up? Like, what's the result? Like, let's, maybe use an example of a woman that you've worked with and where she's ended up after working with you.
Well, I mean, everybody's different. So people have different blocks and places that they want to be. So like, I had one client, for example, she had been wanting to publish a children's book for several years. And it was kind of sitting there on her desktop, like in a PDF file. And there was a resistance that, nobody would buy it and all of these things. And it was a fear within herself that kept her from taking like those last steps. And so like in the end of the different sessions, like we figured out what her limiting beliefs were, because she was afraid that by putting the book out, it was kind of like showing herself to the world. And she was afraid of the judgment that she might receive. So that's one of the sneaky ways that, for example, like it's something that you really sincerely want, but there's a side of you that's like, no, if I do this, somebody won't like it or whatever. So what we did was try to work on the clarity for that. And then in the end, she published it. And then she had like a second one that she had completely forgotten about that she had as well, that she ended up doing later. And with EFT, I mean, it's very interesting, like the transformation, because like one example of how powerful it can be in terms of reframing is certain topics or things that are bothering you, even like emotional issues. Like I would say like emotional issues that are happening like today on an immediate, situation are the easiest to tap on. Things that are happening from, they're affecting you now, but they happened like in your past. Like maybe you tried to give a presentation when you were 8 years old. Let's say everybody laughed at you. And so now you're 40 and you're trying to give a presentation in your office, and you totally freeze up. You start like, panicking or whatever, because you still have those memories. And so EFT in that context can really help you to release some of the negative emotions so that you can find the confidence again.
Okay. Yeah, that's fabulous. So let's assume that I'm not quite there yet, but let's assume I'm a woman getting ready to retire, and I'm just confused because maybe in my pre-retirement life, I had a full-time job. I took care of children. I was kind of primary homemaker and full-time employee of some company. And it's like, I want to retire, but I don't even know how I'm going to spend my time. How do I prioritize, 2,000 hours of time? I think a lot of times, in the financial services industry, which I'm a part of, advisors focus on the financial aspects of it, but there's so much more to figuring out retirement, right? You need to figure out how you want to live your life, the rest of your life. So do you have any tips for how a woman, without hiring you, I think it would be a great way for people to kind of break through and figure this out if they want to figure out their retirement life. But any quick tips on how they could kind of just get started on figuring that next part of their life out?
One of the easiest and like just kind of a simple exercise that you can do, I mean, I do it more in depth, like in a session, is if you kind of take, let's say, 5 different areas of your life. So let's say you have finance, let's say you have free time and leisure activities, personal growth, you have health, and let's say like social life and, community. And so you look at those different areas and you figure out, okay, like what is it that I want out of each? Try to pick like 3 different things. So it's like maybe community. Okay, I want to do some volunteer work. I want to be more active in the book club that I joined 2 years ago and I haven't been, or whatever. Or like maybe it's, whatever kind of like community or social function that maybe you've kind of been avoiding. And then you kind of can go into, okay, health, where am I now? Let's look honestly, am I eating too many sweets? Am I avoiding exercise because I'm, especially during the pandemic, a lot of people stayed at home and laid around on the couch, let's be honest. And so like, how do I kind of get back on track so that I know in 6 months, where do I want to be versus where I am now? I mean, and it's not, of course, about like, criticizing yourself for where you are now, but figuring out like, okay, how could I be in a better place? And so by figuring out even like in 5 areas, that's a really good start. But because a lot of times we think about what we don't want. Okay, so I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be bored all day. But okay, so what would you like to do instead? What kind of activities do you think would be fulfilling? Do you want to learn Spanish? Do you want to learn to play guitar? Is gardening something that you would like to do, to kind of give yourself an idea of what you want your life to look like? Because it's not so often that we actually do that. We kind of sit in a daydream sometimes, like, oh, it'd be so cool if I could, I don't know, travel more, or it would be so cool if I were better at cooking or something like that. But it's just an idea, and we haven't actually put in any steps to actually make it a reality. And so that's what's helpful about a coach, is that you kind of sit and talk about that. Okay, so you want to be a better cook. Okay, why do you want to be a better cook? Well, because I would really like to make healthy meals for myself, and I don't know, I like Thai food, something like that, Yeah. And then so you can kind of create this image of what you want your life to be. And the good thing about a coach, and like I've had a coach myself, and so this is what I really liked, is somebody keeps you accountable for it, because you're like, well, I would like to do this, and we say this all the time, but somebody's like, okay, so last time you discussed that you wanted to do this, so what have you done to try to move forward with that? And that is really helpful for a lot of people, because sometimes, I mean, there are people who they set goals and intentions and they just do it. you know, and that is amazing. But
Yeah.
most of us, we need just like a little help with the accountability sometimes. And we don't always want our, you know, friends and family to have to be like, hey, did you do that thing you said you were going to do? You know?
Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
nice to have a motivator too.
yeah, behavior modification is key. I'm part of some fitness groups because I have some fitness goals, and I've always been active, but I'm contemplating getting a coach just for that accountability. And having that accountability, I think, is key for so many people. I am self-motivated to a certain extent, but I need to go to the next level, or I want to go to the next level. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I kind of am like, okay, I'm at a loss for like, okay, the next level, what does that entail? And I really need someone to be guiding me in that direction. I would love to cook. My kids know, back in the day, I was driving home with my kids. They were like 3, the 2 younger ones, the twins, maybe 5. I said, come on, girls, we got to get home. Mommy's got to get home and cook. And one of them piped up and she said, Mommy, you don't cook, you microwave. And I'm like, all right, you little wisenhunt. We're getting chicken nuggets at McDonald's for that comment. But they gave me an air fryer for Christmas in hopes that in our new home I would do more cooking. But it is. I got the air fryer and I tried it for the first time and I got a cookbook and I was like, yes, I can do this cooking thing. But for me, it's just time, you know, and I think maybe for some people they have so many. For me, I have, you know, it's like I need 3 lives to do all the things that I would like to do. And so maybe it's just helping people prioritize, because there's so many different opportunities. Like I want to travel, but I almost get like overwhelmed because I'm like, oh, there's so many places and things and I'm running out of time. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
it's
knowing
like,
where to start is half the battle often. It's just like, because I'm one of those people too, like I get all these ideas and I'm like, I just want to do this and this. And like my coach is always like, trying to reel me in, like, okay, rein me in, like, okay, where do you need to start? It's like, okay, that's what I need. Thank you. I need somebody to kind of help me focus, because otherwise you end up thinking about everything and then not actually doing things, even though you have all these cool ideas, you know?
right. Yeah. And I call it like kind of squirrel syndrome. So I get, you know, I get down a path and I'm like a squirrel and I'm like, oh, there's a cool nut over there. Let me go that way. And then I zip into another direction. And then sometimes I'm running in all directions at the same time. Yeah, I don't know if it's kind of like I don't know if it's like an ADD thing. You know, I know like just I'll be in my kitchen and I'll, you know, start emptying the dishwasher and then I'm like, oh, that picture's crooked. And then the next thing you know, I'm dusting the furniture and, you know, whatever, propping up pillow. And I was like, wait, I was just over there doing dishes. How did I end up in the garage organizing it?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy, crazy, crazy. Yeah. I think, you know, I'm doing coaching also, but I'm more focused on the personal financial part of it. But it does play the whole, like, what do you want all this money for? Or the money you have, what do you want it for? So I kind of creep into the life coaching area, but it's kind of like I draw the line. So I would love to be able to have, you know, women, you know, say to me, I really, really need to go deep in this life coaching thing. And I'm okay, you got to call Andrea because she's very well equipped to do this. I have something called the Good Life Pyramid on the Her Retirement website. And I want people to think about, as they think about retirement, different levels in this pyramid. And it's, you know, their passion, you know, what's their purpose in their passion? What are their contributions? So contributions to society, to community. What are their connections? Because that's one of the ways that we can live longest. There's a great TED talk about the greatest, you know, determinant of longevity is your relationships. So what are those connections? And then your vitality, your health, and, you know, how you eat and how you take care of your body. It's also one way to spend less on healthcare in retirement, so you can spend money on other things. And then there's a financial foundation, which is very important part of living a good life and where Her Retirement tends to focus. I want to transition because you are in Germany and you're obviously American living in Germany. How did you end up there? Is that a long story?
So I'll try to sum it up. So it starts with me living in China. Before that, I was in Beijing, and I was there for 7 years. I was working for the Chinese radio and as a journalist. And eventually I wanted to move. I've always wanted to move into Europe. Like that's been my dream, you know, ever since I visited with my parents as a kid. And so like I decided to choose to do my master's here in Munich because I had a program in English and I was with my ex-partner. So we moved here and I just absolutely fell in love with Bavaria. Like it's funny because like I had no real appreciation for nature before like living here, but after living in Beijing, I mean, Beijing is 20 million people. It's a huge city, you know, it's just huge. And there's, you know, there are a few parks, but I never realized how much I missed, like, you know, mountains and like rivers and glacial lakes and being able to go hiking. And so once I moved here, I mean, I could finally, you know, enjoy nature and go ride my bike, you know, and go have a picnic and go hiking every weekend if I wanted to, because it's only an hour away. So I love it. Yeah, it's wonderful.
That's great. But because of the power of the internet and Zoom, like we're doing now, you can work with people all over the world, right?
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about, I mean, because especially like during the pandemic, I mean, you know, before, whenever you wanted coaching or, you know, therapy or whatever, you know, kind of, you know, personal growth or mental health services, you always had to go to an office. And I think one of the, you know, few benefits of like having everything online now is that people can be in the privacy of their own home, you know, without having to leave and be able to do, you know, Zoom lessons or Zoom sessions, excuse me.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the other thing is that, you know, I speak to people all over the country. And so you're not just limited to resources in your local community anymore. You know, you can connect with people from anywhere. And in my case, I, you know, pretty much just work with people who live in the United States. They might be, you know, expats or something in another country, but for the most part, understanding that the systems here, the financial systems here is what we focus on. And I think one of the other things that I wanted to chat with you about today was that I originally reached out to you because you had a blog post that you wrote that you commented on in a group that we're part of, that we're both part of. And it was tips or it was basically 10 life lessons I would have told 20-year-old me. And even though you still look 20, I know you're.
Oh, you're too kind.
You're a little older than that. Yeah, actually, I dropped my teenage son off at a party once, and you know, he's 28 now, so it was, you know, 10 years ago or whatever. And I had a baseball hat and sunglasses, and the mom's like, "Oh, you coming to the party too?" And I'm like, "No, I'm the mom." But I texted him. I was like, you know, Mrs. So-and-so thought that I was like your friend and that I could come to the party. And he's like, "Don't ever text me again, Mom." And I was like,
you should be very happy that I look so young and good. Okay.
I know, right? He was like, "Oh my goodness." So, you know, of course I shouted that from the rooftops. But anyway, she was so funny. She was like, "Oh my goodness," you know, and I was like, "Let me take off my glasses so you can see the crow's feet." But in one of my recent episodes, actually episode 50, I talk about the surprising benefits of planning future you. And I was talking about how you can connect, and it was spurred off of an article that I read in the BBC and some research that was done by this gentleman, Mr. Hirschfield. I can't remember his first name, but anyway, I was talking about future you. So now when I read your little piece about life lessons that I would have told 20-year-old me, I have a lot of people that, you know, that I talk to and that are part of my Facebook groups that are younger and say, okay, I want to know from older people what they would do differently. And I referred in that episode of the podcast to an Irma Bombeck little thing that she wrote for one of her books. And it was, you know, if she had to live her life over again, what would she have done? And I remember reading it as like early 20s before I had children. And it really influenced me. It stuck with me again in that whole self-development thing that I've never lost. But she I don't know if she made some of these mistakes in parenting, but specifically it struck me from a parenting perspective. And Irma Bombeck really influenced how I parented my children, as well as my mom, because she's been a great parent. But a few things popped out to me, and maybe because they're personally important to me. But one of the things you said was exercise because you love your body, not because you hate it. So I thought that was really interesting. It's a great way to put it.
It's not my quote. Unfortunately, I cannot take the credit for that. But I think as health and fitness became something that I was more, I would have to say, honestly, more here in Bavaria, because I've been here for 10 years. And I think before I just didn't, I don't know. I think it always felt like such a punishment to have to, like, go to the gym. And I mean, like most women, I think I was on the dieting thing kind of off and on. I was in ballet as a teenager. And I think that honestly was not very helpful for my self-esteem and my, body confidence and everything like that. And it was kind of like once I got here and I started exercising, and then I actually had an injury with my knee. And so, like, the only way that I could avoid surgery was to actually do physical therapy and all this stuff. And so that was even more like ingrained in me that, like, okay, this is a privilege that you have to be able to, like, use your knee and use your leg and, like, heal yourself. And so it's just also, like, I think getting older, I've just realized, your body just, it doesn't work well when you don't take care of it. And so the older that I get, like, I'm so grateful that I have the energy and, like, the vitality, because I work out and, I love myself enough to take care of myself, that it's not a punishment. It's a privilege to be able to take care of my body. Like, brushing your teeth or, like, exercise, it's all part of the self-care,
Right.
in terms
Yep.
of trying to feel good.
Yep. Just make it a habit. So I think it's like a little sign or something. I just moved, so I'm not sure where it is, but it says I have to work out, but the word have is crossed out and it says I get to work out.
I see that. I love that.
Yeah, I need like a tank with that on it. But yeah, I've tried to make it a habit. I've always been active.
Mm-hmm.
I was always in competitive sports, and so, for someone that wasn't, maybe they were more sedentary. I know it's harder to establish that. I love it. Like, I could go out and play
Mm-hmm.
pickleball and basketball and like I could play a sport all day long. It's harder
Mm-hmm.
as you get older as a woman, to find
Yep.
other women that do that. But, hiking, we have road bikes. So we road bike in the nice weather. The Northeast makes it a little challenging, but we try to get out and snowshoe. But I'm also a very strong believer in making sure that women lift weights.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like my personal belief system, is that women need that resistance training, and women are so turned off by, a lot of women are turned off by lifting weights. They think they're going to get big bulky muscles, or that they have to lift
Mm-hmm.
heavy and they're going to hurt themselves. And there are very safe and good ways to lift weights, but so good for your core and your posture. And, like I said earlier in this discussion was, if you can cut down on those healthcare expenses and those prescription drugs, and, genetics play a part of it too. I have an 87-year-old mom, and she's been relatively healthy up until like maybe 2 years ago when she got ovarian cancer. But up until then, she didn't take a
Sorry to
pill,
hear that.
but she's been very active and she's focused on taking care of herself. So I think that's a great one. And I think nutrition is another huge component of it, because this podcast and YouTube channel is about health, wealth, and happiness,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's like a trifecta.
Yep.
But the other one I saw was practicing mindfulness and mental health. And that's probably even less people do that, where they're doing some type of meditation or just mindfulness practice. And so what do you think about that? Why did that make your list?
So this was actually something that totally changed my life, because I've always been kind of a high energy, high stress person. And so I didn't have any way to really channel that energy in a positive way when I was really stressed. And actually, the way that I found EFT was because, like, I was doing my master's program. I had, like, I don't know, 3 final exams in one week. And I was just literally, like, running around my apartment, like, pacing. I was just so stressed. I couldn't think. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't eat. I was a mess. And I remember, like, I can't remember who told me about EFT or how I heard about it, but I remember that I heard that there were, like, some videos on YouTube. And so I went and I was like, okay, it looks kind of funny. Cause, like, I mean, you are tapping on acupuncture points, like, on your face. And I was just like, I don't care. I'm going to try it. Because, like, at this point, like, I tried to sit down and meditate. I didn't feel any better. I, like, tried to walk around the block. I was still, like, my mind just would not calm down so that I could study and focus on what I was trying to do. And so I found like a Brad Yates EFT tapping video, and it was on like anxiety. And so I just like started tapping. I was like, okay, well, it can't hurt anything at this point. Like I'm already, you know, totally out of control emotionally and just ready to like have a panic attack. And I did it, and like, you know, you start like you go from measure yourself from 0 to 10, like where am I on the scale? And I was like a 12, basically, like in terms of intensity. And I did a few rounds. And then afterwards I was like, okay, checking in with myself. I'm like, it's funny. I feel like I'm like a 6 now. Like I've definitely gone down. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do another round. So like I did another round and I got down to like a 3 and then a 2. And then after I would say like 20 minutes, I was just like, whew, all right.
Wow.
I feel a lot better. And so since then, I was just like, okay, anytime I'm going to get stressed, I'm going to do this EFT video. And actually, it hadn't occurred to me at the time that I would ever become a practitioner. But then as I was doing life coaching, there were so many times where I was just like, oh God, this would be, I know that I could help you with this with EFT. So I decided to get certified, and so that I could actually use it with my clients. And it's funny because not many people have heard about it. Like I think, especially in the last year or two, it's become a lot more popular. Like they used it even like after like the Newtown like tragedy, the shooting that happened. Like there were some people that went to do EFT tapping within the community to kind of, you know, calm people down from all that was happening. And yeah, sorry, I feel like I digressed there, but anyway, that's how I've integrated like an EFT into my mindfulness practice, and that's what's pretty much changed my life. I mean, that, and I do meditation and yoga as well.
Yeah.
But the EFT is the most value to me.
I might have to schedule some time with you to try that. My one of my twins, when she was little, it wasn't tapping, but her dad, and I would do it, but more her dad, he would like tap, I guess, her forehead when she couldn't calm down at night before she went to bed. And he would just do that to her forehead and she would calm down and go to sleep. And
yeah,
it was unique to her. I didn't have any other children that did that, but it was her thing. So she's in California now. So I'm like, you know, I think once I said to her, well, I'm just imagine dad or myself kind of tapping your forehead.
Yeah.
But that I didn't know what it was. So
you were doing tapping and you didn't even know it.
Yeah. Because I'm like that, high energy. I've got a lot on my mind. You know, we just moved into a new house and I'm not 100% comfortable in like my room. And when I go to sleep and I can't, it's just not my old room and I'm having a hard time falling asleep. So I've been trying, you know, the whole sync meditation and yoga nidra and things like that. But I don't know. It's, I'd like to try to figure it out. And what I tend to do is stay up really late so that I'm so tired that I'm thinking maybe I'll fall asleep easier, but then I'm just making myself tired the next day. So, but that's a great one. I too do yoga. I do yoga twice a week and it's helped me a lot in a number of different ways, you know, not only physically, but mentally. I have a great online yoga teacher. She used to do, you know, face-to-face yoga in a local health club here. And then she transitioned to Zoom. So she got us all through COVID for sure.
It's amazing to have that.
Yeah. And then my other one that I liked out of the 10 was you'll regret the things you didn't do because you played it small.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this was, I mean, several times in my life, like, especially like one of the other ones I had about like, don't let those who abandon their dreams discourage yours, because sometimes I've had these ideas like before I moved to Mexico, before I moved to China. And there were times where I was like, no, I'm like, I could just stay in Minnesota. I could just, you know, try to study and get a job at the Mayo Clinic like everyone else that I knew. And nobody really understood what I was doing or why I wanted to do it. Like, why would you want to go to Mexico, Andrea? Andrea, what's in China? Why would you even, you know, have this idea? But the thing is that like, I knew that if I didn't do that now, I was going to regret it, you know? And it was kind of one of those situations where I had the opportunity to do it. And I knew that I would never be able to, I would always question myself and be like, why didn't I take the chance, you know? And I'd rather just go and do it and then see what happens. I mean, I didn't just like, you know, vicariously fly over there. I mean, I did plan it. Like I taught English for the first 9 months I was there. Then I studied and then I was, you know, working in my career. But I think that it's something that we tend to kind of play it safe because we don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to fail. Sometimes we're even afraid of success. Like, how would I handle success? Maybe I wouldn't be good with my money. Maybe people would judge me. Maybe my family, might think what I'm doing is stupid or something like that. So I've always, tried to just take those risks and go ahead and do it anyway. And usually it ends up being the best thing that I've ever done for myself, whether it's moving abroad or, making a change in my career or getting more education in a certain area.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. I think I probably would have played my younger life a little bigger, but I got into a relationship and he didn't want to travel. I had an opportunity to work in England with my company and he didn't want to go. And, I had a different life, but, I often wonder like, oh, where would that have taken me? And I've tried to play it big in other smaller, other things. So I like the idea of, moving beyond your comfort zone. And I am doing that, passing on that wisdom to my kids. One of my twins, one stayed here in Massachusetts, which is great because that's what she wanted to do. She wants to study abroad. So that's good. I'm encouraging that. That her twin went to California, and she was the first student in her high school to go to San Diego State. And she just went for it. And she was always a homebody. She couldn't go to sleepaway camp. And then 2 years before she did that, she went to see relatives in Israel all by herself. 16 years old. She jumped on a plane and flew over there. Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? I'm living vicariously through her, but I'm like, go do it. Don't stay in this town of 10,000 people. Like, there's a world to experience and see. Get out there and do it if that's what you want. So so far all the kids have traveled, and I think that they've been brought up that way. A lot of times you're brought up that way, right? And sometimes as women, women my age weren't as encouraged to go out and take those risks and play it big. We're more conservative. We're not as much risk takers. But I started a business at 50. It's like, what the heck,
Amazing.
Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Age is just a number. And, we get that a lot with women that will say, is it too late to go back to school? Or is it too late to take this risk? And I think I wouldn't tell someone, I wouldn't advise someone to take all of their retirement savings, perhaps at 50 or 55 and invest in a big enterprise. But I think you have to take calculated risks, I guess, and play
absolutely.
it. But we're talking about 20-year-olds, so they have plenty of time to make up for any mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's not the same. Obviously, I mean, the risks and the way that you approach things definitely changes as you get older. And so you have to be more like, okay, so if this doesn't work, do I have a second, like a plan B? And how would I adjust if this happened or in this situation? And I think that's the difference with wisdom as you get older as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but in the group that we have in common, I did that post, like, what are 3 things you would tell your 20-year-old self? And I posted it in 3 different groups, which I didn't anticipate the number of responses, but I've probably gotten 400 responses to it across the couple groups. And I was thinking of, writing a little article about what do women want to tell their younger selves. And I'm like, oh, this is going to take a while to compile all these ideas, because I've been skimming them on Facebook. I mean, I'm trying not to be like stuck to Facebook because it's just, in addition to the posture,
it's a time suck.
It's a time suck. But I'm like, I want to see. So I have a virtual assistant in Africa. So I think I may ask her to go and look through all of them and pick out the ones that aren't duplicated and, not make a judgment call about them, but I'm sure there's ones that are probably have some better advice, I guess you would call it, than just, I don't know. I saw a few that were a little too personal and I was like, well, that's like your situation. But anyway, I did want to go with one other thing, because I know that perhaps you're going to be writing a part 2 of this. And
Mhm.
you hinted that you may be talking about encouraging your 20-year-old self to get out there and travel. Speaking of traveling to Israel and San Diego for college. So I know that, you've been a solo female traveler. And one of the things that women that are approaching retirement might want to get out there and do solo travel. And so in addition to telling a 20-year-old version of yourself to get out there and do it, what would you tell the woman that's maybe 50 and wants to now go out and see the world because she didn't have a chance? What are some tips for that woman that might be afraid to do that?
Well, I think like for starters, research is the biggest part of it. And now, like, like I said, I think I told you the other day, like when I started out, like moving to Mexico, like we didn't have the internet and like cell phones. And now there's such a wealth of resources online in terms of like researching, with blogs, like top, 10 safest destinations for female solo travelers, for example.
Okay.
Also, there's so many like groups on Facebook, for example, with women that are super, super helpful. You can be like, hey, I'm going to Madrid. Does anybody have any recommendations for where to stay? And so people are so welcoming and helpful in terms of like answering your questions. And so I think that's the number one thing is like research, and ask for help when you need it. Because I think most people, they don't always know where to start. And of course, like women traveling by themselves, like their top priority is usually safety.
Right.
So like my biggest tip is like research first, read reviews and everything like that. And my most important thing is never sacrifice safety to save money. And that's one of the things that especially I've seen just many times over the years. Like I've traveled all over the world by myself, and don't sacrifice your safety and like walk alone at night on a street because you want to save $20 on a taxi. Like just don't do it. Make a budget for those kind of things. But nowadays it's so much easier to kind of like research, countries of like beach areas and what are the safest ones and what's a good place to go out to eat. And so you can really find all these things in advance, and it doesn't have to be so scary. You don't have to just show up and figure it out.
Right.
Like now it's just much easier to book your shuttle in advance from the airport, book your accommodation. My biggest thing when I travel by myself is I book everything in advance in terms of accommodations. Okay. Like and I make sure that I read reviews. I make sure they're in a good area. You can also, of course, ask people who work at the hotel or the hostel or whatever, if you're at, where they recommend things. I think that's always a really good idea. But I think a lot of people are surprised once they actually are traveling by themselves, how much they like it, because it seems like something that's really scary and like, oh, I couldn't do that. And what if I'm lonely? And of course, there's so many ways to meet people. There's like walking tours, and you can, they have like evening, cooking nights or something like that. Or like, in Spain, they had like a tapas and wine event. So like, there's a lot of different things that you can do so that you can meet people along the way while also just enjoying your own company and being like, okay, I'm at a beach for 2 weeks by myself and I can just read. And sometimes you really need that, just I'm not going to do any activities. I'm just going to read my book and just chill.
Yeah, I think so many of us don't have that alone time, and just it would be wonderful. I have it once my girls went to school in the fall. I was alone in the house and I lived on a lake, and so it was almost like I kind of was trying to get through the little bit of a depression by saying, okay, let me take this time to be like, okay, this is me alone. I've got a beautiful view of the lake, walk, like try to do healthy things and appreciate the quietness and not, embrace it, I guess. But I think because sometimes in my particular case, I've been surrounded by so many people my entire life, big family, 3 kids, corporate jobs. It's just, sometimes I think we were talking about this. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I miss, going to an office for the camaraderie. But then I'm like, oh, it's kind of nice hiding down here in my office by myself. So I do get more alone time. But I'd probably be one of those that is I traveled for corporate, for business alone a lot, but that's very structured. And I have girlfriends now that we've done some trips, but I could try it once to do a solo trip and sit on a beach by myself. But safety comes to mind. I grew up with a
Yeah.
mother who's very safety conscious, and she made me a little nervous about being alone and being vulnerable. You know, she kind of put her own fears on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd probably want to take a safety class before.
I mean, and there's a lot of ways now to like research areas to make sure that they're safe, and to kind of have more information about the place that you're going in advance. Because I mean, obviously it depends on which part of the world you're in, and what the culture is like, what the customs and everything like that. But I love traveling by myself, but I mean, like there are certain areas that like if you go all by yourself to a new place where you don't speak the language, then it should involve a lot more planning just to make sure that you've got everything kind of set up. Like I personally don't just show up someplace, you know, and just wing it. That's not how. I mean, when I was traveling with friends or something like that, like in my, you know, some guy friends or something like that, like in my youth, I did that, or like with a partner. But by myself, I've learned that researching and kind of planning really has to be a lot more part of it, just so that I feel that I'm doing the best, you know, that I can to be safe and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do it to enjoy it, and you don't want to be like stressed and nervous.
Yeah, no, why not? It's your vacation. You know, like you don't want to be stressed and
defeats the purpose. So on your blog, do you write about that? About, you know, travel and being an expat? And because we can talk about this maybe another time, but I know a lot of people trying to figure out where they should live in retirement. And, you know, there's some good options overseas. I saw an article about like the 10 cheapest places to live that are safe and have good health care. And, you know, for people that are like, why am I going to spend all this money to live in the States when I could go somewhere else and live cheaper and maybe have a better quality of life? So I know that's a big thing is, you know, expat and going somewhere else beyond the United States for retirement.
Yeah. That's actually a good idea for a blog, actually, like, you know, like top 10 destinations for retirement or something like that. Because I have ones on like expat life, and I have ones on, you know, especially sometimes, I mean, expat life is not easier, it's just different. So, of course, I mean, you have challenges as an expat, just like you have challenges in your own country. They're just different challenges, you know?
Yeah.
And so I do write a lot about that because, yeah, you just have different ways of dealing with them. But I like that idea. I should actually write one on retirement.
Yeah, I'll share it. I'll put it on my blog post. I'll put it on my blog page for sure, because yeah, I saw the article. There was like Costa Rica, Thailand. I can't even think of all the places, but
Portugal. A lot of people are in Portugal.
Portugal was actually, Portugal made the list, but they looked at different criteria of, you know, what retirees are concerned about: safety, political, you know, no political unrest, healthcare was huge, cost of living,
absolutely,
you know, the arts and the ability to have a cultural experience. You know, you don't want to go sit in a, you know, a single town in a country and not feel like you can go out and do other things. I mean, maybe some people would want to do that, but those were some of the criteria. I could help you for some of the criteria to see which locations make the grade. Oh, another criteria was the cost to get there, because if people have family, you know, that's one criteria, is how much is it going to cost to have my friends and family come visit me?
That is a very good point.
In this location. But so I think we're going to wrap it up. And so if someone wanted to work with you to do life coaching, or to do try the EFT, which sounds amazing, how would they reach out to you? How would they connect with you?
So they can go to my website, which is dreahunt.com, DREAHUNT.com. And they can just book, there's a little Calendly link, so they can book an appointment with me. Also on my, I have Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And my Instagram is probably more the most popular. It's living.deliberately.today. It's from a Henry David Thoreau poem. If you saw Dead Poet Society, I love that movie and I love that poem. So that's what I wanted to name my coaching practice.
Nice. Love it. Very good. Thank you so much, Andrea. This has been phenomenal. And I hope that you enjoyed the chat and talking about your life experiences. And my almost 20-year-olds, I'll definitely share. You know, they're like, Mom, another like, you know, self-help development, you know, hopefully they know a lot about retirement at this point. They know more about 401ks and, you know, all kinds of stuff they've learned. So hopefully they will be prepared for retirement, and they are my plan B if my retirement kind of goes south, but you better not.
You thought about that. I mean,
Well, they're baby A and baby B, plan A and plan B. I have a son, but you know what? Sometimes, my son and I are very close and I love him dearly, but sometimes the sons kind of disappear. I have 3 older brothers, and I'm definitely the primary for my mom. So
yeah.
they could surprise me. They may be off in another country and my son will live down the street. So who
Yeah.
knows?
You never know.
Yeah. One of them, I want
Yeah.
one
Thank
of
you.
them. Yeah. One of them has to be around, but, anyway, yeah, I'd like to go live in another country, but it kind of depends on where my kids end up. So we'll see. But,
Sure.
yeah, but thank you so much. That was awesome. And
No, thank you so much. It's been wonderful coming along talking to you.
Nice chatting. Hey there. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Andrea Hunt. I hope to bring a lot more informative and enjoyable guests onto both my podcast and my YouTube series, Her Retirement. You know what? Here at Her Retirement, it's all about knowing more and having more. And if you need more information, more help, more direction, more connection, reach out to me at lynnt@herretirement.com. That's what Her Retirement is all about, helping you get your retirement plan figured out. Whether it's health, wealth, or happiness, I hope to help you in whatever you need. So again, if you need help, reach out to me at lynnt@herretirement.com. Check out their website at herretirement.com. And here's to getting her done.